Have you ever felt like life keeps throwing curveballs your way, leaving you emotionally drained before the day even begins? Maybe it's the stress of work, the weight of expectations, or the constant noise of modern life that makes it hard to stay grounded. We've all been there, moments where it feels like our emotions are running the show, and we're just along for the ride. But what if there was a way to armor yourself against these daily battles, not by suppressing your feelings, but by mastering them? This is where Stoicism, an ancient philosophy with startlingly modern relevance, steps in. Far from being about cold detachment, Stoicism teaches us how to build unshakable emotional resilience, turning obstacles into stepping stones. Picture this: 2,000 years ago, a Roman emperor named Marcus Aurelius faced unimaginable pressures, wars, betrayals, the weight of an empire on his shoulders. Yet in his private writings, he penned words that still resonate today. "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That's the essence of Stoicism. It's not about ignoring emotions. It's about understanding them so deeply that they no longer control you. And the best part: this wisdom isn't locked away in dusty textbooks. It's practical, actionable, and ready to transform how you handle everything from minor irritations to major setbacks. In this video, we're diving into 22 lesser-known Stoic teachings that act like emotional armor, shielding you from the chaos of modern life while empowering you to thrive within it. These aren't just abstract ideas, they're tools to reframe challenges, cultivate calm in the storm, and discover a strength you might not realize you already possess. Whether you're dealing with a tough day at work, a personal setback, or just the constant buzz of anxiety, these principles will help you respond with clarity instead of reacting in chaos. So, if you're ready to build a mindset that doesn't just endure life's trials but uses them to grow stronger, you're in the right place. Let's begin. What if you could find control in chaos? That's the heart of the first Stoic teaching we'll explore, the dichotomy of control, but with a twist. Most of us know the basics. Some things are within our power, like our thoughts and actions, while others, the weather, traffic, other people's opinions, are not. But Stoicism goes deeper. It's not just about accepting what we can't change. It's about discovering the hidden agency we still possess, even in situations that feel entirely out of our hands. Take Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher, who famously said, "Some things are within our control and some things are not." At first glance, that might sound limiting, as if we're powerless against life's unpredictability. But the real power lies in how we respond. Think of it like this: you can't control whether it rains on your outdoor event, but you can control whether you let it ruin your mood, or even how you adapt, like moving the gathering indoors or embracing the spontaneity of dancing in the rain. The rain isn't yours to command, but your reaction, that's entirely up to you. Let's make this practical. Imagine losing your job unexpectedly. On the surface, that's an uncontrollable event, decisions made by others, market forces, circumstances beyond your influence. But here's where the reimagined dichotomy comes in. While you didn't choose the layoff, you do control what happens next. Will you spiral into self-doubt or use this as a chance to reassess your path? Will you resent the situation or focus on updating your skills, networking, or even exploring a passion you've sidelined? The loss itself isn't in your hands, but the meaning you give it and the steps you take afterward, that's your domain. This is where Stoicism shifts from philosophy to superpower. It's not about passive acceptance, it's about active resilience. Every so-called uncontrollable has a flip side, an opportunity to exercise choice. even if it's just in how you frame the experience. So here's a challenge for you. Pick one thing in your life right now that feels entirely out of your control. Maybe it's a strained relationship, a health concern, or a financial hurdle. Now ask yourself, where's the pocket of influence you might be overlooking? Is it in your mindset, your preparation, or your willingness to adapt? That's the Stoic secret, finding the leverage in the letdown. Stoics didn't suppress emotions, they transmuted them. Think about that for a moment. Where most philosophies might tell you to ignore or push down anger, frustration, or disappointment, Stoicism offers something far more powerful: the art of emotional alchemy. It's the practice of taking what feels like a burden and turning it into fuel. Seneca, one of the great Stoic thinkers, put it bluntly: anger, if not restrained, is frequently more hurtful to us than the injury that provokes it. But here's the twist: he didn't say to eliminate anger entirely. Instead, he saw it as energy waiting to be redirected. Picture anger like fire. Left unchecked, it burns everything in its path. But harnessed, it forges steel, powers engines, and lights the way forward. That's the Stoic approach. When life hands you frustration, say, a project at work gets cancelled last minute, or someone undermines your efforts, you've got a choice. You can let it simmer into resentment, or you can ask, what's this energy trying to tell me? Maybe it's highlighting a boundary you need to set, a skill you've neglected, or even a path you've been too afraid to pursue. Take the example of an artist who receives harsh criticism. The initial sting might feel like a setback, but channeled differently, that same emotion becomes the drive to refine their craft, to prove something to themselves rather than anyone else. Or consider a parent juggling endless responsibilities, feeling overwhelmed by exhaustion. Instead of letting fatigue spiral into helplessness, they might use it as a signal to delegate, to communicate needs more clearly, or to carve out small moments of rest. The emotion isn't the enemy, it's the raw material. So here's a question to sit with. What emotion have you been treating as waste that could actually be repurposed? Frustration at a stalled career could become the push to finally update your resume or explore a side hustle. Anxiety about an uncertain future might transform into focused planning, one small step at a time. Even grief, in its heaviness, can be the weight that roots you deeper into what truly matters. The Stoics didn't just endure their emotions, they mined them for wisdom. And that's the invitation here, not to feel less, but to use what you feel more deliberately. This isn't about slapping a positive spin on pain. It's about recognizing that every emotion carries information and energy. Your job isn't to silence them, it's to listen, then decide how to invest that energy where it counts. Because resilience isn't built by avoiding storms, it's built by learning to sail with the wind you've been given. What if you could inoculate yourself against life's blows? The Stoics called this practice Premeditatio Malorum, the premeditation of adversity. It's not about pessimism or dwelling on the worst-case scenario. Instead, it's a mental vaccine, a way to prepare your mind so thoroughly for challenges that when they arrive, they lose their power to shock or derail you. Marcus Aurelius put it plainly: the art of living is more like wrestling than dancing, in that you should stand ready and firm to meet whatever comes your way. Think of it like a fire drill. No one hopes for a fire, but practicing evacuation routes and safety protocols ensures panic doesn't take over in a real emergency. The Stoics applied this same logic to emotional resilience. By mentally rehearsing setbacks, whether it's a job loss, a conflict, or even personal failure, you strip away the element of surprise. The event itself might still sting, but you've already walked through it in your mind, so you're not caught off guard. Here's how this works in practice. Suppose you have a tough conversation looming, maybe a performance review where you anticipate criticism. Instead of avoiding the thought or letting anxiety spiral, a Stoic would engage with it deliberately. They'd ask, what's the worst that could reasonably happen? Perhaps their ideas are dismissed or they're given constructive feedback. Next, they'd visualize responding with calm clarity, listening without defensiveness, asking questions to understand, and focusing on growth rather than ego. The goal isn't to assume the worst will happen, but to neutralize its emotional charge by rehearsing your composure. This practice has roots in neuroscience too. When you vividly imagine an experience, your brain activates many of the same pathways as the real event. That's why athletes visualize races or performances. It primes their nervous system for action. The Stoics harnessed this principle centuries ago. By routinely contemplating adversity, they trained their minds to respond with intention rather than react with raw emotion. Try this today. Pick one upcoming challenge, a presentation, a difficult decision, even a household chore you've been dreading. Close your eyes and walk through it step by step. What obstacles might arise? How could you meet them with patience or creativity? Notice how the weight of the challenge shifts when you've already faced it in your mind. That's the paradox of this practice. By confronting discomfort in advance, you expand your capacity to handle it when it arrives. The Stoics didn't just endure hardship, they turned preparation into power. Imagine seeing your life from a mountain top, not just physically but mentally, as if you could step outside yourself and observe your struggles from a distance. That's the essence of the Stoic practice called the view from above. It's a mental exercise where you zoom out, way out, until the things that feel overwhelming suddenly appear small, even insignificant. Marcus Aurelius captured this perfectly when he wrote, "Keep in mind how fast things pass by and are forgotten, the vastness of time that swallows everything." He wasn't dismissing life's challenges, he was putting them in their proper context. Think about a stressful week, maybe deadlines piling up, misunderstandings with loved ones, or unexpected bills. In the moment, these feel all-consuming, like they'll define your entire future. But now pull the lens back. Imagine viewing that same week from the perspective of your entire lifetime. Suddenly, it's just a single frame in a much longer film. Zoom out further. See yourself as one person among billions on a planet that's a speck in an unfathomably large universe. Does that make your problems vanish? No, but it does reveal their true scale. The frustration that felt like a mountain becomes a pebble you can step over. This isn't about minimizing your experiences. It's about reclaiming power by seeing them clearly. Consider the anxiety of a public speech. Up close, your palms sweat, your heart races. It feels like the most important moment of your life. But from a cosmic perspective, it's a brief exchange of words in a single room, one of countless conversations happening across the globe. That shift doesn't erase the challenge, but it does strip away the illusion that everything hinges on this one moment. So here's a question to sit with. What current worry would shrink if you saw it from space? Maybe it's a rivalry at work that feels like a battle for survival. From a distance, it's just two people navigating their own insecurities. Or perhaps it's the pressure to meet societal expectations viewed from above. Those expectations are just echoes of a culture that itself is fleeting. The Stoics didn't use this practice to escape reality, but to engage with it more wisely. When you see your life as part of something vast, you stop confusing temporary storms with the entirety of your journey. Try this tonight. Look at the night sky, really look, and let yourself feel small in the best possible way. Those stars have witnessed countless human dramas, triumphs, and heartbreaks. Your struggles matter, but they're not the only thing that matters. That's the gift of the view from above. It doesn't solve your problems, but it ensures they don't solve you. What if your worst day was secretly a gift? That's the radical invitation of Amor Fati, a Latin phrase meaning love of fate. While Nietzsche popularized it, the idea is pure Stoicism. It's not just accepting what happens, it's embracing it, actively finding the value in every twist, even the painful ones. Epictetus put it bluntly, do not seek for things to happen the way you want them to. Rather, wish that what happens happen the way it happens, then you will be happy. At first glance, that might sound like giving up, but dig deeper and you'll find it's the opposite, a way to reclaim agency by refusing to let circumstance dictate your peace. Consider the story of an entrepreneur whose startup collapsed after years of work. In the moment, it felt like a disaster: sleepless nights, financial strain, the sting of public failure. But years later, they'd traced their success to that very collapse. Losing the business forced them to reassess, to pivot toward a niche they'd overlooked, one that eventually thrived. The failure wasn't a detour, it was the path. That's Amor Fati in action, not pretending the pain wasn't real, but recognizing that the pain itself was part of the process. This isn't about toxic positivity. The Stoics weren't suggesting you grin through grief or ignore injustice. They were teaching something far more nuanced, that resistance to reality only amplifies suffering, while alignment with it unlocks unexpected strength. Imagine a tree in a storm. It doesn't curse the wind, it bends, knowing the very forces that strain it also shape its resilience. Your life storms work the same way. Think back to a moment you once labeled as misfortune, a rejection, a loss, a plan gone awry. Can you spot the hidden thread of value now? Maybe the job you didn't get would have trapped you in a role that stifled your growth. Maybe the heartbreak taught you boundaries you'd never have learned otherwise. Amor Fati asks you to revisit those moments not with regret, but with curiosity. How did that bad thing steer you towards something you couldn't yet see? Here's the challenge. Next time life throws you a curveball, pause before labeling it good or bad. Ask instead, what if this is exactly what I need to grow? Not every hardship will reveal its purpose immediately, but the act of looking reframes your relationship with fate itself. You stop being a victim of circumstance and start being a student of it. And that shift from resistance to reverence is where real freedom begins. What if wanting less made you richer? Not in the way our world typically measures wealth: bigger paychecks, fuller closets, shinier gadgets, but in the currency that actually lasts: peace of mind, freedom from endless craving, and the space to savor what you already have. This is the heart of the Stoic discipline of desire, a radical counter to the more is better mantra that leaves so many of us exhausted. Seneca, who lived in the excess of ancient Rome, saw through the illusion clearly. It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor. Consider how modern life trains us to treat desire like a treadmill, always moving, never arriving. You finally get that promotion, only to fixate on the next rung. You buy the perfect sofa, then notice the coffee table looks shabby in comparison. The Stoics proposed a different path, not by depriving yourself, but by recalibrating what's worthy of your wanting in the first place. Virtue, wisdom, courage, justice, self-mastery became their gold standard. Everything else nice to have, but not necessary for a life well lived. Take the example of a musician who dreams of fame. There's nothing wrong with recognition, but when the desire shifts from "I want to create meaningful art" to "I need a million streams to feel valid," the joy drains from the process. Now imagine that same musician focusing purely on mastery, the daily practice, the small breakthroughs, the sheer privilege of making music at all. The irony. That shift often leads to better work, which naturally attracts appreciation. The discipline of desire isn't about rejection, it's about redirection toward what truly nourishes you. This isn't just philosophy, it's neuroscience. Our brains adapt to new pleasures quickly, a phenomenon called hedonic adaptation, that thrill from a new purchase. It fades within weeks, leaving us chasing the next hit. But when we invest desire in internal growth, learning, relationships, contributing, the rewards compound. A conversation with a loved one deepens over years. A skill honed through patience becomes a source of quiet pride. These are the desires that don't diminish with time, they expand. So here's a challenge. Pick one desire you've been clinging to, something external you've convinced yourself you need to be happy. Maybe it's a certain salary, a relationship milestone, or a material possession. Now ask, what if I never attain this? Could I still find meaning in my days? The answer isn't resignation, it's liberation. When you stop outsourcing your worth to things outside your control, you reclaim the only real power you ever had, the choice to value what's already within reach. That's the alchemy of the discipline of desire, turning not enough into more than I realized. Try this Stoic exercise to instantly boost gratitude. Close your eyes and picture something you cherish, your health, your home, the people you love, and imagine it's gone. Not as a morbid fixation, but as a wake-up call to the richness already in your hands. The Stoics called this negative visualization, and Epictetus summed it up perfectly. He robs present ills of their power who has perceived their coming beforehand. At its core, this practice isn't about fear, it's about presence. By mentally rehearsing loss, you strip away the numbness of routine and rediscover the extraordinary in the ordinary. Take something as simple as your morning coffee. Most days you might sip it absent-mindedly while scrolling through your phone. Now try this. Drink it as if it were your last cup ever. Suddenly, the aroma sharpens, the warmth against your palms feels like a gift. The bitterness dances on your tongue in a way you'd forgotten to notice. That's the alchemy of negative visualization. It doesn't manufacture gratitude out of thin air. It reveals what was always there, buried under layers of habit. Consider how we treat relationships. It's easy to take loved ones for granted when you assume they'll always be there. But imagine waking up tomorrow to silence, no texts, no shared jokes, no familiar voice filling the kitchen. The thought alone tightens your chest, doesn't it? That discomfort is the Stoic's compass, pointing you back to the conversations you've been postponing, the small gestures you've been too busy to offer. The practice isn't meant to paralyze you with dread. It's designed to energize you with urgency. History offers a striking example. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, despite his unimaginable power, wrote nightly reminders of his own mortality and the fragility of all he held dear. This wasn't melancholy, it was his way of staying awake to the privilege of ruling, the sacredness of his duties, even the fleeting beauty of a sunset over the Forum. By confronting impermanence daily, he cultivated a reverence for the present that most of us reserve for near-death experiences. So here's a challenge. Pick one unremarkable moment today, a commute, a meal, a laugh with a colleague, and pause. Pretend it's the last time you'll ever experience it. How does the light filtering through the window look different? How does the sound of that laughter settle in your bones? Negative visualization doesn't just deepen gratitude, it rearranges your attention, training you to spot miracles in the mundane. Because the truth is, everything you love is temporary. The Stoics weren't morbid realists, they were architects of joy, showing us that to love life fully, we must first remember how easily it could all slip away. There's a hidden space where your power resides, not in the events that happen to you, but in that sliver of silence between what strikes you and how you respond. Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist who survived the Holocaust, captured this perfectly. Between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. The Stoics knew this 2,000 years earlier. Marcus Aurelius put it bluntly, "You own your mind, don't let it be hijacked." That pause, however brief, is where freedom lies. Think of it like a lightning strike. The flash is instant, uncontrollable, but the thunder that follows, it takes time to roll in. Your emotions work the same way. Someone cuts you off in traffic and anger flares like lightning, but the roar of your reaction, the honking, the muttered insults, that's where you have a choice. The Stoics trained themselves to widen that gap, to let the initial sting of emotion pass like a storm cloud without letting it dictate their actions. Here's how it works in practice. Imagine your coworker takes credit for your idea in a meeting. Your face flushes, your pulse jumps. Ancient Stoics would have called this the first movement, the automatic physical reaction. But right after comes the critical moment. Do you interrupt to correct them, seething with resentment? Or do you take 3 deliberate breaths, steady your voice, and later address it privately with clarity? That's the pause in action. It's not about suppressing emotion. It's about refusing to let emotion autopilot your behavior. Marcus Aurelius had a ritual for this. Whenever he felt provoked, he'd mentally step back and ask, "What part of this is within my control?" Not the insult, not the injustice, but his next move. He called it the discipline of assent, the practice of withholding automatic agreement with every impulsive thought. Modern neuroscience backs this up. Studies show that even a 2-second delay before reacting can shift activity from the amygdala, the brain's alarm system, to the prefrontal cortex, the seat of rational decision-making. In other words, that pause isn't just philosophical, it's biological. Try this today. Pick one trigger that usually sets you off: a rude comment, a last-minute request, even the ding of a stressful notification. Next time it happens, don't reach for your default reaction. Instead, create space, count 4 breaths, feel your feet on the floor. Ask yourself, what version of me responds here, the impulsive one or the one I choose to be? That gap, no matter how small, is where your sovereignty begins, because resilience isn't about avoiding shocks. It's about mastering the quiet moment before the spark catches fire. Every person you meet is a mirror. What do they show you? This isn't just poetic imagery. It's a core Stoic practice for self-awareness. When someone grates on your nerves, when their habits make your jaw clench, that's not just their behavior speaking, it's your own unresolved edges echoing back at you. Epictetus put it bluntly, when you're offended by someone's faults, turn inward and examine your own. The irritation you feel isn't an accident, it's an invitation. Take the coworker who constantly misses deadlines. Your frustration might feel justified, but pause and ask, where have you been cutting corners lately? Maybe it's the gym routine you've neglected, the half-finished project collecting dust, or the promises you've made to yourself but keep postponing. Their laziness stings because it reflects the parts of you that resist discipline too. Or consider the friend who dominates conversations. Before labeling them self-absorbed, check your own listening habits. Have you been fully present in conversations lately, or just waiting for your turn to speak? This mirror works both ways. The qualities you admire in others often point to untapped potential in yourself. That colleague who stays calm under pressure. Their composure highlights your own capacity for steadiness. The neighbor who volunteers tirelessly, their generosity mirrors the kindness you could cultivate further. The Stoics didn't see people as separate from their own growth. They saw every interaction as feedback. Here's how to practice this today. Think of someone who irritates you, not the cartoonish villains of your life, but the everyday characters who trigger a visceral reaction. Now flip the script. What if their most annoying trait is a distorted reflection of something you dislike or deny in yourself? The know-it-all might reveal your own fear of being wrong. The chronic complainer could mirror your resistance to taking responsibility. This isn't about self-blame, it's about spotting patterns. The real power comes next. Once you've identified the reflection, ask, how can I address this in myself? Not to change the other person, but to refine your own character. That's the Stoic shift from judging others to upgrading yourself. Because the only person you can truly transform is the one staring back from the mirror each morning. The rest, they're just here to help you see more clearly. Imagine a place no external chaos can touch, a fortress so secure that no insult, failure, or outside turmoil can breach its walls. This isn't fantasy, it's the Stoic concept of the inner citadel, a mental stronghold Marcus Aurelius described as the ultimate refuge. Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul. Picture it, a sanctuary built not of stone, but of self-awareness, principles, and deliberate thought. When the world feels like it's spinning out of control, this is where you retreat, not to escape reality, but to reclaim your clarity within it. Think of the last time you felt overwhelmed, maybe stuck in traffic with horns blaring, deadlines piling up, or voices around you rising in argument. Now imagine closing your eyes for just 10 seconds and turning your focus inward. The noise doesn't disappear, but something shifts. You're no longer at its mercy. That's the inner citadel in action. It's not about ignoring external pressures. It's about anchoring yourself so deeply in your values and perspective that those pressures lose their power to destabilize you. Marcus, despite ruling an empire, carved out this space daily. Amidst wars and political intrigue, he'd retreat to his journals, writing reminders like, "You can retreat into yourself anytime." No place is more peaceful or free than the soul. For him, the inner citadel wasn't passive, it was a discipline. He fortified it by rehearsing virtues, questioning impulses, and reflecting on what truly mattered. A modern equivalent, the executive who steps into a bathroom stall during a chaotic workday to take 3 centering breaths, or the parent who pauses mid-argument to ask, "What's the version of me I want to bring to this moment?" Here's how to start building yours. Every brick in this fortress is a choice, a commitment to patience when provoked, to curiosity over judgment, to focusing on effort rather than outcomes. Even small acts count. Maybe today's brick is resisting the urge to check your phone during a meal, savoring the taste of your food instead. Or perhaps it's catching yourself mid-complaint and reframing it as a problem to solve. Each intentional thought, each restrained reaction thickens the walls. So here's a challenge. What's one brick you can add to your inner citadel today? It might be as simple as letting go of the need to have the last word, or as profound as revisiting a core value you've neglected. Because the true power of this practice isn't just weathering storms, it's realizing you were never just the ship. You're also the harbor. How letting go can be the ultimate power move. We spend so much energy gripping the steering wheel of life, white-knuckling plans, micromanaging outcomes, obsessing over every detail only to find exhaustion waiting at the end. But here's the paradox the Stoics uncovered. Sometimes the strongest stance is release. Seneca put it beautifully. Be like the cliff against which the waves continually break. It stands firm and tames the fury of the water around it. Notice he didn't say fight the waves or command them to stop. Mastery comes not from domination, but from rooted presence amid chaos. Take something as mundane as traffic. You're running late and suddenly brake lights stretch for miles. The control freak response, gripping the wheel, muttering curses, checking the clock every 30 seconds as if that might magically clear the road. The Stoic alternative, a deep breath, shoulders dropping, radio turned up not because you've given up, but because you've wisely discerned what's yours to change your reaction and what isn't. The gridlock. That shift from resistance to acceptance doesn't weaken you. It conserves energy for battles you can actually win. This philosophy shines in high-stakes scenarios too. Consider an athlete before a championship match. They've trained relentlessly, but now the moment has arrived. Clenching with anxiety won't improve their serve, trusting their preparation might. Or a musician on stage, fingers frozen by fear of wrong notes, play worse than those flowing with the music. The common thread: control isn't about rigidity, it's about responsiveness. Like water adjusting to a container, Stoic surrender means bending without breaking. Now turn the lens inward. What invisible ropes are you tugging at, convinced that if you just pull harder, something will budge? Maybe it's a relationship where you're doing all the emotional labor, a career milestone that refuses to materialize on your timeline, or even your own body's limitations when illness strikes. The Stoics would ask, where's your energy flowing into fruitful action or futile resistance? Here's the litmus test. If your jaw is tight, your sleep restless, and your thoughts looping with "if only," you're likely fighting a battle against reality itself. Try this instead. Name one thing you've been straining to control, then whisper Seneca's reminder: fate leads the willing and drags the unwilling, not as defeat but as liberation. Because when you stop wrestling with what was never yours to command, you free up hands to grasp what is, your next move, your mindset, your choice to flow rather than fracture. That's the secret art of surrender. It doesn't take power away, it gives power back. Life isn't happening to you, it's testing you. That shift in perspective changes everything. The Stoics saw obstacles not as punishments or random misfortunes, but as carefully designed exams where the stakes were your own growth. Epictetus, who began life as a slave, put it bluntly: difficulties are things that show what men are. In other words, the hardship is the lesson. It's not about what happens to you, it's about who you become in response. Think of a missed promotion. On the surface, it feels like rejection, a door slamming shut. But through the Stoic lens, it's a pop quiz. Do you define your worth by titles or by the integrity of your effort? Can you celebrate a colleague's success without resentment? Will you let this detour fuel complacency or curiosity? The answers don't just determine your next career move, they reveal the kind of person you're choosing to be. History offers a striking example. Thomas Edison's lab burned to the ground in 1914, destroying years of research. Watching the flames, he told his son, "There's great value in disaster. All our mistakes are burned up. Thank God we can start anew." That wasn't optimism, it was Stoic reframing. The fire wasn't a catastrophe, it was a forced reset, an exam on resilience. Edison passed by rebuilding within weeks, eventually achieving breakthroughs the old lab might never have produced. Now apply this to everyday frustrations. The neighbor's barking dog, a test of patience; the delayed flight, a test of adaptability. Even chronic pain can be a grueling but revealing exam. How much joy can you find within your limits? The Stoics weren't masochists, they were realists. They knew life would administer these tests whether they studied or not, so they chose to show up prepared. Here's your challenge. Pick one current struggle, a conflict, a setback, even a mundane irritation. Ask yourself, if this were designed specifically to strengthen a virtue I lack, what would it be? Maybe the endless meetings at work are training you in focus amidst boredom. Maybe the friend who keeps canceling plans is testing your compassion for unseen battles. When you start viewing life as your strictest but fairest teacher, failures become feedback and obstacles become the curriculum. The question isn't whether you'll face trials, it's whether you'll recognize them as the forge where your character is tempered. What if remembering death could make you more alive? At first glance, the Stoic practice of Memento Mori, Latin for "remember you must die," sounds dark, even macabre. But peel back the layers and you'll find one of history's most potent motivators hiding in plain sight. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor, scribbled this reminder in his journals: you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. Far from being a morbid fixation, this was his compass. The awareness of life's brevity wasn't meant to paralyze, it was designed to clarify. Consider how differently we act when faced with a near miss. A car swerves dangerously close. A health scare turns out to be a false alarm. Suddenly, trivial frustrations evaporate. That argument with your partner feels petty. The project you've been procrastinating leaps to the top of your list. Why? Because the illusion of endless time shatters, revealing what actually matters. The Stoics didn't wait for accidents to trigger this clarity. They cultivated it daily. Like a mental cold plunge, Memento Mori shocks the system awake, stripping away the distractions that trick us into living half-heartedly. Take the modern entrepreneur grinding 80-hour weeks, chasing some distant finish line. Now imagine them starting each morning with a simple question: if today were my last, would I spend it like this? The answer might not mean quitting their job, but it could reveal the emails they've been avoiding, the family dinners they've skipped, or the creative project they've sidelined until things calm down. Death, when invited as a counselor rather than feared as a specter, becomes the ultimate editor, cutting through the noise of someday and leaving only the essentials. This practice isn't about gloom, it's about urgency. The writer who stops waiting for perfect conditions and finally starts that novel. The parent who puts down their phone to truly listen to their child's rambling story. Even the small choices, savoring your morning coffee instead of gulping it, or telling someone, "I appreciate you," instead of assuming they know, gain new weight when viewed through this lens. Mortality doesn't diminish life, it intensifies it. So here's the challenge. Tonight, as you lie in bed, ask yourself, did I live today or just go through the motions? Not to judge, but to course correct, because the secret isn't to live as if each day were your last, but to remember that someday it will be. And when that day comes, what will you wish you'd done with this one? The Stoics had an ideal, but they never reached it. Their concept of the sage, a figure of perfect wisdom and unshakable virtue, wasn't meant to be a realistic goalpost. It was a North Star, something to orient by, not something to grasp. Seneca captured this beautifully. I'm not wise and never will be. Don't ask me to be equal to the best, just better than the worst. That's the heart of it. Stoicism isn't about flawless execution. It's about relentless direction. Think of the sage like a master musician. Even the greatest pianists hit wrong notes occasionally, but their genius lies in how they recover, how they weave those stumbles back into the music without missing a beat. The Stoic sage isn't someone who never feels anger or doubt. They're someone who recognizes those emotions quickly and redirects them with skill. This distinction matters because chasing perfection is a recipe for burnout while chasing progress. That's where transformation happens. Consider a parent losing patience with their child. The unattainable sage might never raise their voice, but the practicing Stoic. They notice the heat rising in their chest, take a breath, and soften their tone mid-sentence. That's not failure, it's a victory. It's proof they're navigating the gap between reaction and response more skillfully than before. The sage archetype isn't a standard to berate yourself with, it's a mirror to reveal how far you've come. Seneca loved this metaphor. A ship doesn't become seaworthy by reaching the harbor, it becomes seaworthy by sailing. Every storm weathered, every course correction, every mile logged strengthens its resilience. Your journey toward wisdom works the same way. Did you pause before snapping at your partner this morning? That's your hull growing stronger. Did you reframe a setback as a lesson rather than a defeat? That's your sails catching the wind. here's the invitation. What's one step toward your sage self this week? Not a giant leap, just a single, intentional choice. Maybe it's letting go of the need to win an argument, or spending 10 minutes less on social media to reflect instead. Progress doesn't demand grandeur, it thrives on consistency. The Stoics didn't measure themselves by how close they got to perfection, but by how faithfully they kept showing up for the work. And that's a standard anyone can meet starting today. Why would anyone choose discomfort when comfort is just a thermostat adjustment away? The Stoics weren't masochists, they were strategists. They knew that too much ease weakens the emotional immune system, leaving us brittle when life inevitably serves up hardship. Musonius Rufus, the Stoic teacher who trained Epictetus, put it plainly: how can we expect to endure real adversity if we've never practiced enduring even minor inconveniences? This wasn't about suffering for its own sake. It was about vaccination through controlled exposure. Think of modern life's comforts like temperature-controlled rooms, instant meals, and apps that eliminate even the smallest weights. These conveniences aren't bad, but they've rewired our tolerance for discomfort. A delayed text reply triggers anxiety. A lukewarm coffee feels like a personal affront. The Stoics would argue this isn't progress, it's fragility in disguise. Their solution, voluntary hardship, not to punish themselves, but to preserve their ability to thrive when involuntary hardships strike. Take the ancient practice of sleeping on a hard bed. It wasn't about rejecting comfort. It was about maintaining the capacity to rest anywhere life might place them. A modern equivalent, choosing the stairs over the elevator, not just for fitness, but for the mental reminder that effort is survivable, even beneficial. Or consider cold showers, a favorite Stoic exercise. That initial shock isn't just a wake-up call for the body, it's training for the mind. When you willingly stand under icy water for 60 seconds, you're proving to yourself that discomfort is temporary and manageable, a lesson that translates directly to weathering life's emotional chills. This practice isn't about grand gestures. It's the small, daily rebellions against excessive ease, reading a physical book instead of scrolling when bored, walking in light rain without complaint, or having a difficult conversation face-to-face rather than hiding behind screens. Each choice is a rep for resilience, strengthening your capacity to handle bigger challenges when they arise. So here's the question: what's one tiny discomfort you can invite into your day? Maybe it's leaving your phone behind during a walk, or resisting the urge to snack when boredom strikes. The goal isn't to make life harder. It's to prove to yourself that you're harder than life's inconveniences. Because the real luxury isn't avoiding discomfort, it's knowing you can handle it when it comes uninvited. Your attention is currency. Where are you overspending? The Stoics understood this long before modern productivity gurus. Their version of the circle of influence wasn't just about efficiency, it was about sovereignty. Epictetus put it sharply: it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Notice what he didn't say: try to control everything. Instead, he drew a line in the sand between what deserves your energy and what's just draining your reserves. Think of your mental focus like a limited budget. Every minute spent raging at headlines you can't change, every hour lost to rehearsing conversations that will never happen, those are withdrawals from an account that could be funding real growth. Take social media debates. That rush of righteousness when you clap back at a stranger's comment. It feels productive, but what's the actual return? Contrast that with the same 30 minutes spent practicing a skill, reading wisdom that stretches your mind, or even having a meaningful conversation with someone in your actual life. One choice leaves you emptier, the other compounds interest in your character. History offers a stark example. When the Roman Emperor Nero ordered Seneca's death, the philosopher didn't waste his final hours begging or scheming. He focused on what remained within his power, calming his grieving wife, dictating his final teachings, and facing death with dignity. That's the circle of influence at its most extreme, recognizing that even when your external world collapses, your inner world is yours to govern. Now zoom into modern life. That co-worker who dismisses your ideas, you can't force them to respect you, but you can sharpen your expertise until your work speaks louder than their opinions. The traffic jam making you late, you won't clear the road by honking, but you can use the delay to listen to an uplifting podcast or practice patience. The Stoic shift isn't passive, it's about redirecting effort from dead ends to fertile ground. Here's the challenge: audit your attention this week like a financial planner reviewing expenses. Notice where you're pouring energy into black holes, maybe obsessing over a friend's political posts, refreshing metrics for validation, or worrying about scenarios that haven't materialized. Then ask, if I invested half that mental capital into something within my control, what could I build? The answer isn't about doing more, it's about investing better. Because mastery isn't measured by how much you react to the world, but by how wisely you choose where to leave your fingerprints. What if saying nothing was your greatest reply? In a world that rewards quick comebacks and instant reactions, silence feels like surrender, but the Stoics knew better. Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, warned that the tongue is the most troublesome part of the body, a weapon that often backfires when wielded in haste. Strategic silence isn't weakness, it's the ultimate power play, creating space where thoughtlessness would normally rush in. Picture this: you're in a heated discussion, and someone lobs a cheap shot. Maybe a passive-aggressive comment about your work or a personal dig disguised as humor. Your pulse quickens, your fingers twitch with the urge to retaliate. This is where the Stoic pause transforms the battlefield. By choosing silence, you refuse to hand over your emotional reins. You become the calm in their storm, the unshakable wall their words can't penetrate. That's not losing the argument, it's redefining the terms of engagement. Take online interactions. A troll leaves a deliberately inflammatory comment on your post. The algorithm thirsts for engagement, and your ego screams for the last word. But every reply, no matter how clever, pours fuel on their fire. Silence, though it starves the flame. Suddenly, their words hang in empty space, revealing their absurdity without your help. The Stoics called this the discipline of assent, the practice of withholding agreement or reaction until you've chosen it deliberately, not impulsively. History offers a masterclass in this. When the Roman senator Cato was publicly mocked by his rivals, he didn't rebut or rage. He sat unmoved, sometimes even reading a scroll as insults rained down. His silence didn't confirm their accusations, it exposed their desperation. The crowd, expecting a spectacle, instead witnessed his unbreakable composure, and his detractors became the ones who looked foolish. So here's your challenge. Identify one upcoming moment where silence could be your sharpest tool. Maybe it's resisting the urge to correct a know-it-all colleague, or letting a family member's provocations fade without response. Ask yourself, what do I gain by speaking, and what might I preserve by staying quiet? The Stoic pause isn't about bottling up emotions, it's about letting them settle until only clarity remains. Because sometimes the most powerful statement is the one you never make. For Stoics, success wasn't fame, it was integrity. While the world chased wealth, status, and applause, they measured victory by an entirely different standard: the alignment of their actions with virtue. Marcus Aurelius put it plainly in his Meditations: waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one. That single sentence cuts through centuries of philosophical debate like a sword through fog. The Stoics weren't interested in abstract definitions of goodness. They were obsessed with its daily practice. Picture two salespeople closing a deal. One exaggerates product capabilities to hit their quarterly target, securing a bonus and manager praise. The other admits limitations upfront, risking the sale but preserving trust. Society might call the first person the winner, but Stoics would crown the second. Why? Because virtue, honesty, courage, justice was their only true currency. External rewards, those were just indifferent things, neither good nor bad in themselves. What mattered was whether you earned them through moral means. This philosophy shines in modern dilemmas too. Imagine discovering a billing error in your favor at a small business. Reporting it means paying more. Staying silent means extra cash. The Stoic lens flips the question from "what can I gain?" to "who do I become if I ignore this?" That shift transforms ethics from a restriction into liberation, freedom from the gnawing guilt of compromised principles. History offers a striking example. When the Roman general Cato was campaigning, his soldiers once begged him to let them loot a conquered town. The spoils would have boosted morale and funded their next mission. But Cato refused. His reasoning: "It's harder to keep wealth than to gain it. I won't let them learn theft from me." His troops grumbled in the moment, but that decision cemented a legacy of integrity that outlasted empires. So here's a question to sit with. What's one decision where virtue quietly steered you? Maybe it was returning lost money when no one was watching, or speaking up for a colleague despite social risk. Those moments aren't just moral victories, they're the invisible architecture of your character. Because the Stoics knew a secret: life will test you when the stakes seem small, so you're ready when they're life-changing. Every right choice, no matter how unnoticed, fortifies your inner compass, and that's the only navigation system that never fails. The obstacle isn't in the way, it is the way. That simple twist of perspective changes everything. Ryan Holiday's modern Stoic take on this ancient idea cuts to the core of resilience. What if the things we're desperately trying to avoid or overcome are actually the very things sculpting our strength? Marcus Aurelius phrased it like a blacksmith's mantra: "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." At first glance, that sounds contradictory. How can a roadblock double as a path? But the Stoics weren't speaking in riddles. They were revealing a fundamental law of growth. Consider the story of a writer whose manuscript gets rejected by every major publisher. The immediate reaction might be despair, all that work seemingly wasted. But what if those rejections weren't dead ends but signposts? One author faced this exact scenario and decided to self-publish, building a direct relationship with readers. That failure became the foundation for a career free from traditional gatekeepers. The obstacle, rejection, didn't block the path, it revealed a better one. This principle isn't just about bouncing back, it's about leaning in. When a musician develops tendinitis and can't play their instrument for months, they could see it as a career ender. Or they could use the forced pause to study music theory, emerging with deeper compositions. When a sudden relocation disrupts your routine, it's easy to fixate on the chaos, but what new connections or opportunities might exist only because you were uprooted? The Stoics called this Amor, Fati, the love of fate, but it's also just practical alchemy, taking what life hands you and transmuting it into fuel. Marcus Aurelius faced this daily as emperor. Plagues, betrayals, wars, each could have been an excuse to crumble. Instead, he wrote, "Our actions may be impeded, but there can be no impeding our intentions or dispositions." Even when external forces blocked his plans, his mindset remained his own to command. That's the hidden superpower here. Obstacles don't dictate your response, they reveal it. A delayed flight isn't just an inconvenience, it's a test of patience. A difficult colleague isn't just a nuisance, they're a mirror showing you where your communication skills need refining. So here's the challenge. What obstacle in your life right now is waiting to be repurposed? Maybe it's a financial setback forcing you to budget creatively, or a health hurdle teaching you to listen to your body. The key question isn't, how do I remove this, but what can this add? Because the most resilient people aren't those who face fewer barriers. They're the ones who have learned to see barriers as the curriculum. Your current struggle might just be the exact training you didn't know you needed. Your breath is a remote control for your emotions. That might sound like modern self-help jargon, but the Stoics knew this secret 2,000 years before neuroscience confirmed it. Epictetus, the philosopher who transformed his enslavement into a masterclass on inner freedom, put it plainly: attention is the rarest and purest form of generosity, especially when directed inward. What he described wasn't just philosophical musing, it was a physiological hack. Every inhale and exhale is a direct line to your nervous system, a way to dial down panic or amplify calm without saying a word. Think about the last time anger hijacked you, maybe in traffic, during an argument, or reading an infuriating email. Notice what happened to your breathing: shallow, rapid, maybe even held unconsciously. Now flip the script. When Navy SEAL train to remain calm under gunfire, they don't rely on complex mantras. They use box breathing: 4 counts in, 4 counts hold, 4 counts out. Why? Because controlled breath overrides the amygdala's panic button. The Stoics didn't have fMRI machines, but they recognized this same truth through observation. Your breath isn't just oxygen exchange, it's the anchor that keeps you from being swept away by emotional tides. Here's how to put this into practice today. Next time stress strikes a looming deadline, a tense conversation, even the overwhelm of a crowded room, pause for 3 intentional breaths. Not the barely there sips of air we normally take, but deep, measured cycles where the exhale lasts longer than the inhale. Feel the air filling your lungs, then release it slowly, as if you're letting go of the tension itself. Ancient Stoics would pair this with a mental reminder: this moment is all I truly have. Modern science would nod in agreement. Those extended exhales trigger your vagus nerve, signaling safety to your fight or flight system. Consider the parent counting breaths while their toddler melts down, creating space between stimulus and response instead of mirroring the chaos. Or the CEO pausing mid-meeting to steady their breathing before addressing a crisis, ensuring their words come from clarity, not reactivity. These aren't just techniques, they're acts of sovereignty. Your breath is the one thing no one can control for you, the always available reset button when the world feels like it's spinning too fast. Epictetus warned that most people live distracted, half asleep to their own lives. But 3 conscious breaths, that's the jolt awake, not because it changes your circumstances, but because it changes your presence within them. So here's the invitation. Let your next frustration be the reminder not to react, but to breathe. The pause that follows might just reveal the version of you that stress wanted to hide. Not everything deserves a piece of your soul. That's the blunt truth at the heart of the Stoic indifference filter, a mental sieve that separates what warrants your energy from what's merely masquerading as important. Seneca cut to the core of this when he wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality," pointing to the countless hours we waste agonizing over trivialities that leave no lasting mark. The Stoics weren't suggesting apathy, they were advocating for ruthless prioritization. Imagine your attention as a finite resource, like water in the desert. Every drop poured into gossip, petty grievances, or hypothetical worries is a drop stolen from what truly nourishes you. Take gossip as an example. You overhear co-workers whispering about you in the break room. The immediate sting is real, but the Stoic question isn't, how do I make them stop? It's, does this alter my character or my ability to live virtuously? If the answer's no, and it almost always is, you've just identified an indifferent, not in the sense that it doesn't matter at all, but that it shouldn't commandeer your inner peace. Contrast that with a real issue like discovering a friend is struggling silently. That's not indifferent, it's an opportunity for compassion, a chance to practice the Stoic virtue of justice through action. The filter isn't about ignoring life, it's about engaging with the parts that leave you stronger. History offers a striking case study. When the Roman statesman Cato was mocked publicly for wearing outdated clothing, he didn't rush to update his wardrobe or defend his fashion choices. He recognized the insults as indifferent noise that couldn't touch his integrity, but when his political ally was unfairly exiled, that was worth his full attention and effort. The same principle applies today. Social media outrage cycles demand your indignation daily, but how many of those issues actually align with your values or sphere of influence? The indifference filter helps you spot the difference between performative frustration and meaningful engagement. Here's how to apply this today. Grab a sheet of paper and draw 2 columns. Label one virtue-aligned, the other indifferent. Now list your current stressors, that looming deadline. If it pushes you to grow and deliver excellence, it belongs in the first column. The rude comment from a stranger online, unless it reveals a truth you need to confront, it's likely just background static. The goal isn't to eliminate all discomfort, it's to reserve your deepest engagement for what shapes your character. So here's the challenge. What's one thing you've been treating as urgent that might just be indifferent? Maybe it's the pressure to keep up with trends that don't resonate with you, or the need to have an opinion on every headline. Test it against Seneca's razor. Does this hinder my ability to live wisely, justly, or courageously? If not, let it pass through you like wind through a sieve. Your soul's real estate is too valuable for squatters. How would the future judge your choices today? That question isn't just philosophical, it's practical. The Stoics called this the legacy lens, the practice of viewing your actions through the eyes of history. Marcus Aurelius scribbled this reminder in his journal: waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one, but he wasn't writing for applause, he was writing for accountability, as if generations yet unborn were peering over his shoulder. This isn't about crafting a perfect image for posterity. It's about letting the weight of consequence sharpen your decisions in real time. Consider the ripple effect of a single act of kindness. You let a stressed cashier's rude comment slide, choosing patience instead of pride. Maybe they go home and hug their child a little tighter, who then carries that warmth to school the next day. Or you stay late to mentor a junior colleague, not for recognition, but because it's right. Decades later, they credit that guidance as the spark that changed their trajectory. The legacy lens turns mundane moments into moral architecture, where every choice, no matter how small, becomes a brick in the edifice of your character. History offers a striking example. When the Roman statesman Cato refused to bend his principles for political gain, his contemporaries called him stubborn. But his unyielding integrity became a blueprint for future leaders, inspiring figures like George Washington centuries later. Cato wasn't thinking about fame, he was thinking about the example he owed to time itself. That's the power of this practice, it transcends ego. You're no longer just living for today's rewards or avoiding today's conflicts. You're stewarding a reputation you'll never fully see the impact of. Now bring this into the modern world. That text you're drafting in anger, how would it read if published in a biography? The extra effort you withhold at work because no one will notice. Oh, what if it became the defining story of your professionalism? The legacy lens isn't about performance, it's about alignment. It asks, are you building something that outlasts you, even in the quietest corners of your life? So here's the challenge. Pick one routine action today: how you greet your neighbor, how you handle a mistake, even how you talk to yourself in the mirror, and ask, if this were the only moment future generations could witness, what would it teach them? Not about perfection, but about intention, because legacies aren't built in grand gestures alone. They're forged in the 1,000 tiny choices where only your conscience is watching. We've journeyed through 22 Stoic teachings, each a sturdy link in the armor that protects your peace, not by shielding you from life's blows, but by transforming how you meet them. From the dichotomy of control to the legacy lens, these aren't just ideas. They're forged tools, waiting to temper your resilience every time life strikes the anvil. But here's the truth no Stoic would let you forget. Mastery isn't about flawlessness. It's about showing up to the work day after day, like a blacksmith refining the same blade with each swing. Seneca put it best, as long as you live, keep learning how to live. That's the heart of it. This isn't a checklist to complete, it's a compass to carry. So here's your challenge, simple but profound. Pick just one of these teachings this week. Maybe it's the pause between stimulus and response, or the practice of negative visualization to awaken gratitude. Apply it deliberately in the moments that test you, then circle back here and share what shifted. Did the view from above shrink a problem down to size? Did Amor Fati reveal hidden gifts in a setback? Your story might be the spark that helps another viewer stand firmer in their own storms. And if these principles resonate with you, consider this an invitation, not just to subscribe, but to join a community of modern Stoics. People like you, turning ancient wisdom into everyday strength, one intentional choice at a time, because the real power of philosophy isn't in reading words on a screen, it's in the living of them. Your armor isn't finished yet, but with each practice, each conscious effort, you're hammering it stronger. So tell us below, which teaching will you wield first? The next chapter of your resilience starts.